Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger and Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.
Coming up on Indiana News Desk. The avian flu that has ravaged chicken and turkey flocks in the state has migrated to wild birds such as cranes and geese.
Throughout January, we just started to see those mortalities rise to the point where there were hundreds of them that have died.
Around 200 dead sandhill cranes were found outside Seymour this week. Regulations for a new class of refrigerants may mean having to replace your HVAC system rather than repairing it, and that can be expensive.
There isn't really a retrofittable solution to just say, hey, we're going to switch out the refrigerant to the new refrigerant on the existing equipment.
At Ivy Tech, students are learning how to work with the new refrigerants, which are more environmentally friendly but also more flammable. And IU Indianapolis has been classified as a Research 1 institution thanks to a change in the classification system. These stories and more right now on Indiana News Desk. Welcome to Indiana News Desk. I'm Joe Wren. Indiana's K through 12 schools and state universities have until today to eliminate policies that consider race in admissions, scholarships, and other aspects of student life or risk losing federal funding. This goes along with Governor Mike Braun's executive order to end DEI initiatives in state government and mirrors President Trump's executive order on the federal level.
When it comes to equity versus equality, to me, that's simple. If you're focusing too much on equity, you're contriving outcomes through government.
Neither Indiana University nor MCCSC responded to requests for comment, and leaders haven't made any public announcements about how they're responding to the directive. Monroe County Community Schools is also facing funding challenges due to declining population and decreased revenue from the state. Superintendent Markay Winston shared the school corporation's plan to confront the shortfall during her State of Our Schools address Wednesday night at Tri-North Middle School. Isabella Vesperini reports.
In her address, Winston highlighted some of MCCSC's accomplishments, including a 92% graduation rate and an 85% post-secondary employment rate. She outlined 6 priorities, including strengthening fiscal and operational health and fostering student growth.
Number 3, continuing to expand our early learning program. Do you know that as a result of our referendum, we have increased our participation of our 4-year-old students by more than 73% from 1 year ago?
Winston announced a 2-year plan to achieve financial balance. Student enrollment has decreased 7.6% in the last 3 years, resulting in a loss of $17.2 million in state revenue, which helps pay for teacher wages and benefits.
At MCCSC, we receive funding from the state to cover our wages and our benefits for our teachers, and it relies on our student enrollment.
County data indicates that about 400 fewer students could attend MCCSC schools in the next 10 years. Payroll expenses have increased by 31.7%, costing $28.6 million in the past 3 years.
We have completed the major components of Phase 1, a comprehensive fiscal review and cost analysis that began in July 2024 when I was named interim superintendent.
Phase 2, beginning this spring, will evaluate how the corporation can cut costs. With less funding, Winston says every teaching position that opens might not be filled. Phase 3 prioritizes a financial management plan, and Phase 4 will implement the strategies established in the plan. Phase 5 calls for continuous evaluation of the financial plan.
While change is never easy, I want to be clear. We will balance our fiscal reality to sustain the type of educational environments our students want and our community needs. Sustaining excellence. That is the mission.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Isabella Vesperini.
The 2-year 5-step plan is available on MCCSC's website. Winston says she will provide quarterly updates at board meetings on the progress of the plan. Cincinnati resident Catherine Greenwood was passing through Seymour last weekend on Highway 50 when she saw a startling sight, dozens and dozens of dead sandhill cranes. She later posted what she saw on Facebook, where it went viral. Clayton Baumgarth visited the site Tuesday to confirm the story and has more on the avian flu that has spread to wild flocks.
I'm standing just outside of Seymour where these birds were first spotted. Now, these sandhill cranes have not been tested for bird flu yet, but the DNR says that because of waterfowl in the area and other cranes being tested and confirmed to have bird flu, it's likely they're dead because of bird flu. Since Greenwood's post, the number of dead cranes at the site has risen to nearly 30. Reports of the dead birds in Jackson County have been coming to the DNR since early January. Those early reports have been confirmed as caused by bird flu.
Throughout January, we just started to see those mortalities rise to the point where there were hundreds of them that have died. Right now, we're estimating 500 to 600 based on reports. I'm pretty confident that there's more than that.
So far this year, about 1,500 sandhills have been reported dead across the state. Similarly, over 1,000 Canada geese and 1,000 snow geese have also been reported dead due to bird flu. It's difficult to track how many wild birds are sick with bird flu because the primary way of testing is through collected carcasses that have been reported to the agency.
Sometimes there'll be some carcasses that I think are really high value and I would like to get them collected, but I can't get a hold of the property owner, and so I can't go collect those. Or sample them.
Other times, logistics becomes an issue, as a limited number of staff aren't able to get samples from all over the state to the lab in a timely manner. Avian influenza's grasp on the state's wild bird population is becoming more visible. Goose Pond Fish and Wildlife Area had to put up signs warning visitors about sick and dying birds that have been spotted on site.
I think they had roughly 200 that died around that area, and all 200 of those birds died like a week before they had a large outreach event there. And so there were a lot of birders, a lot of members of the public. There were a lot of folks going to Goose Pond, and there were all those dead carcasses around. And so we put out some information to let folks know what was going on.
Birding groups say they are heartbroken to see the sick birds at the park and worry about it spreading to others.
My big concerns is that it spreads to the whooping cranes. There's an endangered species out here, the whooping crane, and we hope that none of them get it.
Fleece says that while 70 cases of humans with bird flu have been confirmed nationwide, roughly 68 of them were working in a confined space directly with sick flocks.
I think they largely were breathing in that virus, but they certainly had considerably more exposure than your average person.
Goose Pond is still open to visitors. The DNR says that bird flu poses a small risk to humans, but still encourages people to not approach any sick or dead birds. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
Now, dead or sick birds can be reported to the Indiana DNR tip page at in.gov/sickwildlife. This month, IU proudly reported that its Indianapolis campus was designated as a Research 1 institution by Carnegie Classification, meaning it's one of the most productive research campuses in the country. But instead of changes on campus, it's actually due to Carnegie's new classification system. As our Ethan Sandwise reports, 40 other universities joined IU Indianapolis as R1 when the threshold was lowered recently.
The campus proudly joined the ranks of R1 universities, which signifies our role as a leading institution in driving groundbreaking research.
Carnegie Classifications divides research campuses in two levels based on their output. R1 universities are the largest. IU leaders touted the change as a matter of prestige. Although President Pamela Whitten referred to R1 as a status, researchers at Carnegie say R1 designation is not meant to be a status symbol. Contrary to popular belief, it doesn't provide more access to grant funding either.
It wasn't supposed to be a prestige or a designation of quality or anything else than a description. Large footprint, medium footprint, smaller footprint.
40 other campuses around the country were reclassified last year as R1 alongside IUPUI. Among them, Michigan Tech, Howard University, and the University of California, San Francisco.
There are many institutions that are very effective, good research universities that were not recognized at R1 because it was not quite at that level.
Borden says that by trying to earn R1 status and the prestige that comes with it, universities would sometimes risk important parts of their mission, such as undergraduate experience. But with a lower threshold and clearer guidelines, that rush can be avoided. Carnegie used to look at 7 factors for classifying research output, based mainly on size. Now it's down to 2, a $50 million research budget and at least 70 PhD graduates per year. Places like IU Indianapolis already fit the mold. Under current standards, Borden says it would have been an R1 since 2010.
It's not really reflective necessarily of what's been done since President Whitten has been in, but it's not like it's dishonest or anything, it's just survival and making as much as you can out of the good to counter all the things of the bad.
The fact that IU Indianapolis was reclassified due to a change in definition isn't lost on campus leaders.
This is a level of research that we've been engaged in for a long time, but it's finally being recognized with this change in how Carnegie is coming up with the R1 designation.
The designation was actually granted to IUPUI, since Carnegie looked at a 3-year period before campus split between IU and Purdue University. But of its almost $90 million research budget in 2023, nearly $77 million went to areas that are now part of IU.
If you take away all of the great work that our Purdue colleagues contributed to the IUPUI ranking of R1, if you take away their doctoral degrees and the research expenditures, we still would have qualified for the R1 status.
But Borden would be the first to tell you, a university is more than just its research footprint. IUPUI is young by university standards. It only started granting degrees in the 70s. Its function as an urban campus was different from Bloomington's. Rather than research, it emphasized service to the city through education for non-traditional students and social development. Borden says that's what attracted him to campus when he started teaching there in the early 90s. But it's not the type of mission that helps campuses classify for R1.
For many of the other programs, funding was more from philanthropic kind of organizations because it was about community development. And they may move away from that because it's not as rich. It doesn't provide as many indirect costs.
Corso says that won't be the case.
I also like to think of IU Indianapolis as a campus that doesn't do research just for research's sake. We do research that has an impact on our communities.
IUI is Indiana's 4th R1 campus, joining its Bloomington sister campus, Purdue University, and the University of Notre Dame. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Ethan Sandweiss.
The Indianapolis campus receives a fraction of the Indiana University's total research funding, which was over $770 million in 2023. Coming up next on Indiana News Desk.
Seems like every 10 years there's a change to regulations in our refrigerants.
If your HVAC system is acting up, new refrigerant regulations may mean you have to replace your unit rather than just fixing it. These stories and more right here on Indiana News Desk.
When you put voices together, there's an energy in the air.
Keeping Black traditions alive, it's so important.
The story was meant to be told.
This feels so good.
Black people can also have those stories too.
To what do I owe this pleasure?
It's showtime!
It's what I love doing.
Your love for your little boy shines out.
This story is mine, and no one is going to tell it but me.
We need an undercover operation. Starting to enjoy myself.
That
is absolutely perfect.
Welcome back to Indiana News Desk. Now for more headlines from around the state. Monroe County residents will pay nearly $4 million less in property taxes this year due to an error in the 2025 budget. The budget, based on an incorrect tax rate, was approved by the County Council last fall. Council President Jennifer Crossley says the council will explore options to deal with the revenue shortfall, including an appeal to the state to correct the budget. That could mean a higher tax rate for 2026.
We're all human, those things happen, but we can learn from this. And I've spoken to the auditor and she has assured me that there are things put into place so this will not happen in the future.
If the appeal fails, the council may consider budget cuts to some areas of local government. The Monroe County Jail Project's pre-design phase has been approved despite concerns with cost and layout. The project is estimated to cost over $236 million, paid for by a county correctional tax. County Council member Kate Wiltz took issue with the cost, design of the outdoor recreational area, and the number of inmate beds.
I understand it's not my decision and you can decide that it's going to be 500 beds, but to not talk through that when we have these conversations just feels very disrespectful.
The next design phase will be presented to county councilors and commissioners in May. Construction is expected to begin next July. Governor Mike Braun is looking ahead to a wrestling match over property tax reform in the second half of the legislative session. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Brandon Smith reports. Braun says he's confident he and lawmakers will find a sweet, happy medium on one of the session's top issues.
The Senate's version of property tax reform is targeted at older Hoosiers, disabled veterans, and first-time homebuyers. Braun maintains relief must be broader, but his plan would cost local governments and schools billions of dollars a year. Braun says locals need to prove they haven't gone above and beyond in their budgets.
If they bought a lot of shiny objects, they're sitting on a lot of cash balances, do a little soul searching yourselves.
Braun has threatened to veto the property tax legislation as a last resort if it doesn't improve, and there have been digital ads targeting lawmakers on the issue. Braun says it's a healthy conversation.
Hopefully it's uncomfortable only because it's addressing something that needs to be changed in a positive way.
Braun says he also wants to ensure the debate doesn't go overboard. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Brandon Smith at the State House.
Braun signed 2 executive orders Thursday to combat what he says is millions of dollars lost due to fraudulent unemployment insurance claims. Now, one of the orders directs the Indiana Department of Workforce Development to verify applicant eligibility using state and federal new hire directories and other data cross-checking tools. Now, Braun says unemployment insurance should only be used as temporary assistance while searching for a new job.
We want to protect the integrity of our unemployment program and the taxpayer dollars that fund it by requiring greater accountability.
The second order directs DWD to require additional work searching activities and to more rigorously audit job hunting efforts. Well, Indiana's poorest performing casino, Rising Star Casino in Rising Sun along the Ohio River, wants to move. A bill to allow them to relocate to New Haven in the northwestern Indiana couldn't get a vote this session, but lawmakers are advancing a bill to study the idea. The study would assess the top 3 regions in the state where a casino could move and projected revenue impacts.
If the purpose of gaming is revenue, why there is not a casino in downtown Indianapolis defies my understanding.
The study would also measure the impact the move would have on the other states' casinos, tourism, and the horse racing industry. And the DNR plans to increase deer surveillance in southwest Indiana after the appearance of chronic wasting disease. The disease attacks the deer's nervous system and can't be cured. An infected deer may be emaciated or exhibit strange behavior. The DNR encourages the public to report cases on their website.
The public and hunters reporting on that website really kind of expands our reach and really helps us identify what's going on out there.
2 cases have been confirmed in the state in the past year, most recently in Posey County. New EPA regulations began last month for the HVAC industry. These rules aim to reduce environmental impacts of refrigerants, but could significantly affect how consumers buy or repair their home units. Clayton Baumgarth reports on how local instructors and businesses are handling the changes.
Since its founding in 1963, Ivy Tech has helped students prep for a career quickly. It's here that they come to learn about the HVAC industry.
This is room B113 on Ivy Tech. We've got a lot of residential equipment in here.
Through this program, students see the inner workings of air conditioners, furnaces, and more. Lately, that training has begun talking about a new refrigerant with a lower global warming potential.
It seems like every 10 years there's a change to regulations in our refrigerants. All of them are designed to be a temporary solution.
This new class of refrigerants, called A2Ls, are more environmentally friendly than the previous R410A refrigerants. However, they are more flammable, which requires more training.
It's a mildly flammable. So when the students get that exposure to it, it's something that they need to understand is not commonplace at all.
This phase out of old refrigerants comes with growing pains. For one, industry leaders expect the price of the older chemicals to increase 20 to 30%.
Although nothing prevents you from servicing your equipment, if less of the refrigerant is being produced and supplied into the industry, that phase down schedule of the refrigerant likely will have some cost impact on maintaining and servicing, existing equipment.
After last month's change, any new HVAC system is required to be compatible with A2L refrigerant. Anything before that cutoff is considered legacy equipment, and as the phase out of producing R410A goes on, the supply of that coolant will decrease. And if you're worried about that cost, future-proofing to the new standard will also be a chunk of change, with some estimating a new unit to cost between $6,000 and $8,000.
There isn't really a retrofittable solution to just say, hey, we're going to switch out the refrigerant to the new refrigerant on the existing equipment. Isn't really a viable solution at this point.
Lilia says that's because the new flammable refrigerant requires safety equipment that can't be installed in old systems. Those in the HVAC industry have been divided. On one hand, lowering environmental risk is viewed as a good thing. On the other, the short timeline and cost to implement this change has been challenging for some.
The hardest part, I think, is for everybody to educate themselves on the new requirements and what is changed and what is allowed and what's not allowed.
Surprisingly, that new expected price increase hasn't happened yet. In fact, the cost of R410A has decreased since the start of the year.
That refrigerant price has actually come down to what I would call historical levels. We'll see it go back up. I'm confident of that. But that hasn't happened yet.
Laughlin said that since 410 has been used since the late 90s in systems worldwide, the supply is massive for now. But as the phase out of production continues, he believes that its price could increase up to 300%. He added that with this new rule, a service call can involve working with one of 4 refrigerants.
We've got different tools that interact with those different refrigerants. So, and that all, while it's a pain, it boils down to it's just more involved. And when things are more involved and more complicated, they naturally get more expensive.
It all adds up to consumers having to choose between keeping older equipment with a higher maintenance cost or swapping to the new hardware at a steep buy-in. For Indiana News Desk, I'm Clayton Baumgarth.
College sports are becoming increasingly more valuable. As Elise Perry reports, a finance professor at IU Columbus has drawn national attention for his formula that puts a price tag on the value of collegiate programs.
Analysts routinely estimate the market value of professional sports franchises. Forbes has the NFL's Dallas Cowboys listed as the world's most valuable franchise at $10.1 billion. But what about college football teams?
That, it's a good time to pause and think about how this future yellow brick road is paved.
In the modern era of college sports, with players being compensated beyond a scholarship, sometimes far beyond, schools and conferences are looking at private equity to help fund sports programs.
But I don't think it makes sense to add student fees and charge higher tuition for the rest of the students to pay for the athletics that have gotten more expensive.
Brewer's research, recently featured in the Wall Street Journal, considers a team's revenues, growth, cash flow, and sustainability to create evaluation. The numbers are staggering, reflecting the popularity of college football especially. Brewer values Ohio State University's football program at nearly $2 billion. It's among 9 programs valued at over $1 billion. That list includes Notre Dame, Georgia, and Texas. He sets IU football's value at $386 million and Purdue football at $279 million. It's a long way from amateur sports.
The extent to which college sports has become commercialized sort of went past that line quite a bit, and it placed a lot of college presidents and trustees in this dilemma of, what do we do? And college sports has continued to roll down that commercial line.
For Indiana News Desk, I'm Elise Perry.
That's the end of this program, but our work continues online as we cover the news throughout the week at WTIUnews.org. Have a great weekend.
Indiana News Desk is made possible in part by Maller-Grodner Attorneys, providing legal services to clients and the community. Understanding, expertise, results. Bloomington and Indianapolis. LawMG.com. IU Center for Rural Engagement, extending IU Bloomington resources to improve Hoosier lives in partnerships with communities and organizations. rural.indiana.edu. Smithville Fiber Internet Security Solutions and Voice in Southern Indiana. More information at smithville.com. Bunger & Robertson Attorneys at Law, utilizing 75 years of experience, knowledge, and resources to help individuals and families recover in personal injury matters. Information at lawbr.com. And by WTIU members. Thank you.